Make sure everything's working appropriately, and I'll just hop right in. All right, we got some viewers already. I love to see it. How we feeling, chat? Can I get a mic check from anyone? All right, friends, let's just hop right in. Welcome, everyone, to the Tools of the Trade live stream. I'm your host, Captain Cole, and I'm joined by my co-host, Trip, also known as Crypto ISO on Crypto Twitter. We got an awesome episode for you guys planned today, but first and foremost, would all of our incredible subscribers do me a favor, smash that like button, make us look good for the YouTube algo. Before I jump in, I want to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, Phemex, one of the only non-KYC derivative exchanges left in crypto. We trade there, so should you. So click in the link in the description below to get up to $6,000 in sign-up bonus. Now, the last thing I'll say before we get started here is that nothing we say on Tools of the Trade is meant to be considered financial advice. We are not financial advisors, and this stream is for educational purposes only. All right. Now, with that out of the way, Trip, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. You really nailed that.
Did I?
For the sleepless bias flipper, most popular man on Twitter,
Literally.
low time frame scalper.
Love it.
Yeah, no hiccups in the intro. So
thank you. It's it's a work in progress. We go forward.
yeah. No, this should be good. I think there's a lot to talk about. I think last stream we talked about inflection points, pivotal points in the market. I mean, now we're even closer to those as we're nearing kind of those 31, 32K areas, and ETH kind of coming into that key zone that, obviously we'll talk about, and everyone's favorite alt season, which, seems to be just around the corner.
Oh, yeah. Or is it?
So yeah, there's hints of it. You can see it in some of the coins today. A lot of newer coins too. So yeah, we can talk about all this, take some questions from the audience and whatnot. So however we want to kick it off, let's get right
I think before we even jump in, I kind of want to get your macro backdrop, right? You're our resident macro expert here. We had CPI on Wednesday, PPI this morning. What are your thoughts on just everything moving forward, based on those two prints and how we're kind of looking at the data moving forward?
So for me, as we've gotten further away from COVID and we're looking at, the data and the economic data and the projections are coming out and the forecasts are coming out, there's very little variation. Like when we saw there was larger deltas in some of those prints, which brings obviously a lot more volatility in price action. Traditional equities and just looking at the bid, you have buybacks going on. I think the market is basically just saying look, the Fed is going to pivot, stop raising at some point. And so you don't really get trading around okay, when they say it, it's going to, that's when people buy it. It's much more of ahead of that. So as you weigh that factor into the market, and you look at the way the dollar's acting, right? And then those other things kind of in equities, we have bank earnings starting tomorrow. Big tech is buying back stock, right? So that's a formidable force in the market. I mean, are things really going down, right? Yeah, we all want them to go down. We all want this big short. But the reality is the market has crawled kind of this wall of worry that people are anticipating, right? And, what is the recession going to be? Is it going to be a big one? Is it going to be a small one? Are we not going to have one? One of the members of the Fed basically said no. I mean, if you look at the minutes, it'll be a mild recession. So there's a lot of mixed messages, but the market is kind of doing what it wants to do right now, and kind of continues to march up, right? If we start trading above 4150 on the S&P, then is there a chance it can go to 4300, right? And then we have this big rally in April. As you get into FOMC, I believe that's May 3rd, you're going to have ISM, JOLTS numbers, then you're going to have the first non-farm payroll. And so, looking at risk windows, putting kind of CPI behind us, which was a big thing, right, was kind of a non-eventful number. And this data gets revised too a lot. And so I think people look at that. So, it's people were short, they're covering. I mean, I have a couple of friends who work at hedge funds, and it's come to the point where they're like, well, we have to roll off hedges. And so you see that in the market. And so There's a
The
combination
unwinding.
of things pushing price up. There's more things pushing price up than pushing price down. There's more reasons for it to go up right now than for it to go down, in my opinion, right? And so if you look at the NASDAQ, the way it's traded versus ES, and if you're saying like, okay, like crypto is correlated to kind of that tech trade, then okay, well, it looks like it's going up, right? If you're looking at it against gold, right? If you're looking at the dollar going down, like then it looks like it could break out. So uh, yeah, we're coming into these key levels. Liquidity is obviously playing a role in this. I mean,
For sure.
there's like 13 billion in ETH longs. I mean, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago there was about four. So that's a pretty big increase in the deltas, and you can start to see like maybe near term offsides players are going to be exploited at some point. I mean, BTC's 20 billion. I mean, we've seen 30 billion.
Magic number.
Yeah, everyone wants to short it too, I think. So that's like this, you know, when do we get that boom candle and everyone's like, oh man, it's like then it's like, oh, it's going to 40K, right?
Yep.
Maybe when you see
Yep.
that sentiment flip, that's when you step in. But for now, it's been a really interesting low time frame scalping environment. Look, if you're spot long from a lot lower, like
You're hanging
you're
out.
probably
You're
saying
relaxed.
you're saying, yeah, okay, like this. Did you anticipate a banking crisis and all these things in a perfect storm for crypto to kind of manifest itself into that on top of like the ETH merge? And so yeah, there's a lot of noise, but if you simplify it, like I don't know, it seems like there's more reasons for the market to go up than there is down in traditional risk assets. And so the dollar needs to find a bid as well, and how that comes, I'm not sure. I mean, China Taiwan, that's a big one people talk about. Maybe a really sharp move in crude that can always scare um, the markets because then you have this inflation fear kind of coming back into it, or you just get commentary from the Fed that's very aggressive, hawkish that tries to talk it down. But yeah, it's level to level trading right now, really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
If
which
you're
I
not
think,
swing long from lower, you really have to be level to level trading, right? You can't get too greedy with it because the market will just run it back otherwise.
yeah, and it's been really good. Like it's been yes, we've had some chop and stuff, but if you're a low time frame, liquidity driven range scalper, I mean, it's
This
been
is the
pretty
bread and
interesting.
butter.
Yeah, it's don't hold things very long. Like you're in and out, and these moves are getting smaller because you're getting kind of like an extension into how far things can go. Um, so yeah, let's get into it. Hopefully
Awesome.
a,
Yeah, I love it.
enough.
Let's. I'm gonna throw your chart on you. Give me some backdrop to S&P and then Nasdaq, maybe just to get a sense for the equity side of things before we jump into crypto.
Yeah, so let's just take a look at this. Well, I mean, this is interesting in itself right now because you're at a resistance level, right? Like
Yep.
these over under trades, you'll hear Exo talk about them. A lot of people like you maybe it takes a couple tries, right? You have a 9 cell right here, but like we're at like a pretty big level of resistance. I would say on this like 4170. So we ran this, came back down, and now we're like retesting this. But we hit it here too. So let's make this full
Range high,
screen.
range low.
Yeah, and so like you have all these lows down here, right? So everyone probably wants to tag those. But let's look at it on a daily chart, um, just to see where we are. Like look at the buyback candle after like right here, right? Or I'm trying to extend this out so we can see it better. Turn off TD. But like I think a lot of people thought that like this candle right here was like, oh, like it tried to go up, and then it couldn't anymore.
Yep.
Oh, but now it's starting to look like a runway wick, right? You have a
Yep.
you have a ton of shorts right here. Look at all this. So to me, like given this happened essentially post CPI, and talking about like risk windows and the market understanding that like it has some breathing room up until the next big events. Like, okay, like why can't this trade literally like to this high? 4,300. Take this high out. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing really that says to me that it needs to go down. And it look, if one of those things happens, then maybe. But okay, well, this top band right here seems like almost a pretty nice place for the rest of April and for this to trade up there. because like you start trading above this, then you're basically flipping this resistance as support, right? In the simplest form. So that's kind of some other that's on ES front, and then if we look at Nasdaq, which is more indicative, and we've all
That's like a
broken.
tech trade, right? Like when crypto kind of correlates with tech.
Yeah, and we don't know if that's necessarily happening because what we've been seeing in Bitcoin is largely driven on the narrative of like kind of what it started as, right? And like it's coming into fruition with the banking crisis and the dollar and that whole instance. But like
Yep.
again, you have like this is an identical candle that happened on the Nasdaq from the ES, right? So where does this work in this trade? Like to me, like okay, like what is it, 13.7?
Yep,
Yeah,
just about.
boom. Like this, I honestly think these are all going to break out and they're going to trade like they're going to go a lot higher, and it's going to be pre uh, FOMC in that slew of data. Now, how does crypto react to that? If the dollar keeps going down, anything that's really denominated in it most likely is going to go up. And we can look at the dollar here, and again, like here's your key low, right? Like we didn't really take it. Does it come down to the bottom band? Does it have like a dramatic move like below here? It remains to be seen. But if this were to happen and it didn't find support, then you would see those
I think we see
higher
your
targets.
Nasdaq chart, by the way, not DXY.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
We're still amateur streamer. uh, so yeah, I mean, we didn't really take this low here. So like, can it come down here? It would need to find support and start trading back up, or can it really just like fall off a cliff here? And that's how you get those higher targets for ES and Nasdaq. And then what does that mean for crypto? I mean, I had posted this earlier. Ethereum didn't actually take the key high
Yeah.
that we have over here. Look, it doesn't
2031.
have it doesn't have to like, but it seems like there's a ton of liquidity.
You're still on DXY, by the way.
Oh yeah, my bad. Sorry. Um, is it so? This just seems like pretty ripe for the taking, and then you're getting into this zone here, which is obviously matches up with liquidity. Um, if we want to look at this here, I'll show you Hyblock. I actually kind of went back to my roots today and looked at some of these liquidation heat maps, which was stuff that I used to look at. And so if we go to ETH and let's go look at a 7-day look back, and we'll run it. And you can kind of see around like where price almost went into today, like the liquidity, like 2030 up here, right?
Yep.
Let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. Let's see here. Yeah, these are actually really helpful. So we like kind of went into it, but where's like the big liquidity? Like it would run those highs that we just talked about. And so, this is one way that I look at the charts. Then I look at the heat maps to see, because it gives you like, looking like from 40,000 feet up down where clusters of liquidity are. And then you can go to like your why does it bring this up every time? Oh, don't show me again. Sorry. Then you can start to identify more of the
Refresh the page.
no, there we go.
There you go.
Just low. You can start to identify and narrow down more of like where the actual bubbles are.
Yep.
So if we run ETH, so it's 2009, 2010 roughly on Coinbase right now.
Yep.
And if we know that there's clusters of liquidity 2030, are you going to get it perfectly? Maybe, but that's this. Like that is this up here.
Yep.
And one thing when looking at these are, that's a 50x short versus a 25x short. You're 13.3 billion in longs. So basically there's 98 shorts to 715 longs.
7
Can
to
it
1.
drop here? Yeah, it totally can. But would this be like Pico, like lick, like grab up here into that yellow cluster that we just looked at? 100%.
Yep.
And then that would take out, basically this zone up here, I think. And so, yeah, that's something I'm watching, but it doesn't mean that it can't drop right now. And if we look at BTC, one thing I like to do is I like to find diagonal channels and where those resistance points are, and if they match up with lick clusters around that area. So BTC, we have like.
Oh, you're still on Hyblock, by the way.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. Yeah. I'll get it, guys. Don't worry. So BTC, like, kind of have this diagonal up here. We have this mini uptrend. Is it breaking? But we know we have like demand down here.
Yep.
And if we go over to Hyblock, and I will switch it, don't worry, you'll start to see that. I'm just going to load it first. You'll start to see that those kind of DBS zones or those demand zones on low time frame. Here, just sharing it now, are going to start to match up with a lot of the liquidity. And when you're looking at liquidity, if you want to simplify this when using Hyblock, you can take this granularity slider right here, and you can drop it so it's going to give you the larger liquidity bubbles, almost like that liquidation heat map. And so you'll see that, there's 13 longs to 3 shorts. And if we look at, this kind of 100x cluster here, okay, that's 29.49, that's 29.3, you got a 50x here. Does it always come into the perfect area? Maybe, but this zone, if price were to come down into this, because you'd be tagging this 29.2, could be an interesting long. If you think that we're going higher and we're going to start to kind of get these 30.8, maybe 31 areas.
Yep.
But if you look, if you were to look kind of on that 30.8 straight shot up here, all right, you'd be getting, into that 31 area. And then, so this could be an interesting level where they're off sides if they're not already. So those are kind of the things that I'm looking at, on the dollar front, ES, NQ, reasoning behind it, liquidity, BTC, ETH, and yeah.
It's interesting.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm just looking at your chart. I see that like potential rising wedge, whatever, but like that steep uptrend breaks the trend line, sure, and then you have that blue little consolidation area marked out, right? And like, where does that consolidation just happen to be? Like right back at the 21 yearly high, or yearly open, sorry, and right above the range reaccumulation range we broke out of 3 weeks of consolidation. So that to me, if I was in a long, if I have a bullish bias, right, and I think, okay, echo bubble, bull market, whatever you want to call it, it's going to continue on. Where do I get long? Am I longing here with everyone else on leverage, or am I waiting for that flush, right? So like one of the things you do in bull markets is, right, you buy dips, you sell rips. So when you look at the chart and you see like there's this little patch of consolidation right above a previous range high, right? That to me is like the ideal entry point, ideally. 29.2, 29 to 29.4. I mean, I think I mentioned that the other day on Twitter. That's like a really nice spot if you were going to get long and assume trend continuation and you're looking for some sort of pullback, right? So let's see what that actually translates into.
Yeah, and that's your liquidity too, basically. But like, I mean, if you just look like where we are, like this is resistance. Like it's just how much further is it going to go up?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you flip it, right, then you're probably going to go towards here.
So that's like a 3% dip, which wipes out about almost the 24. Actually, from the top, it's more than 4%. That wipes out everyone, right? Like the 50x, 100x, the 50x, all the way down to the 25xers. So all the breakout high leverage trading longs would get wiped around here. Let's say, and again, we have the cloud support here at 29.2. think we had a 4-hour Tenkin, I believe, or Kijun right there. 20, yep, Kijun. So again, everyone knows I love my Kijun. That's mean reversion in a trending market. If you want to get long and you're like, where do I get long? Where do I get long? Well, you wait for price to touch this beautiful yellow line, and that tends to be a good area for a bounce, right? So just thinking out loud here, if I were to put, bids on, let's call it 29.4 because that was a nice area. And then probably wouldn't want price to re-enter this previous reaccumulation range, right, that we broke out of. So let's say the midpoint, 28.3.
Yeah, I feel like you'd want to see a pretty swift reaction.
Yeah.
On the liquidity that we just identified around the 29s, because the chances are you would have people shorting that on the way down. And one thing to be really cognizant of is when looking at this stuff, I think, is like positioning, right?
Yep.
If people are not shorting that on the way down and people are longing that,
you probably don't want to be a buyer there.
Yeah, you don't have market participants because you need an aggressor, right? The aggressor has been largely the short side, right? Those guys have been getting squeezed, where the dips have been very, very shallow. So when you do get trend reversals, or when you get to pivotal inflection points in markets, like the majority is going to be on the wrong side. So if you have a green delta and price is dropping and people are longing that, then that's fuel for down.
Yep.
If people are shorting that on the way down, then you maybe think about hedging or covering into that liquidity and shorting from higher up, or riding that back up on a scalp with those shorts getting squeezed. But it hasn't really been the case where you have so many longs chasing something down yet. That's why only in some altcoins you've kind of seen it, but that also stems back to the relative strength of Bitcoin. And so it had, money has been flowing into that.
Yep. So it's
Is
like
that
the
going to change now?
rotation trade. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I think people are wondering if that's going to change now.
Yeah,
So
I think it's good now to kind of talk about ETH for a second, just because we had Shanghai yesterday. First of all, great upgrade, right? Millions of ETH are able to be withdrawn, collective value a couple $1 billion or more. Ethereum has been a monster, right? The last 24 hours, it really has been ripping up from, what was it, like 1800 ish, 1920, or yeah, yesterday, sorry, right here, 1830s. And then we had the CPI print thing just pushed up, came down, pushed up again. And when I look at this chart, it's interesting to me because like the first reaction when you see like, okay, this consolidation breakout, all right, I probably have to retest back to 1920 or whatever, or like, flip that high. But like Ethereum's known, Trip shared the liquidity earlier, but like it doesn't give you these clean retests. It'll just stay within like the mid range of whatever consolidation it was in. So, call it this right here, midpoint's like 2K. So the 2K level is like a very pivotal level to hold. And assuming that it does hold this level, I can easily see something of just like little down, a little sideways, and then just like next leg up, right? So it almost looks like a replication of expansion, consolidation, expansion. So, where does that put ETH? Probably puts around the 2060 level, and that would probably run all the liquidity that we just looked at on Hyblock. So, when you look at liquidity and you try to understand the positioning of the market participants, yes, the ratio right now is 7-1 in terms of like longs to shorts. But the fact that there still is so much liquidity, and one thing I've always noticed, Bitcoin won't always do this, but Ethereum, when it tends to run, it just runs. Before all these longs get destroyed, it's very likely that ETH will just run all the highs, stop everyone out, and then revert, right? So everyone's eager to short ETH, the pumped, it's beta to Bitcoin, etc. But truth be told, I think we're probably going to run the highs, clear everything out before we actually get some sort of pullback. Now, that's based on ETH alone doing its thing. If Bitcoin from here breaks down from 30.3K and breaks below 30K, then I see, cause like Trip was just talking about for us to not run this liquidity to much later. And at that point, it's much more likely that it's going to rip even higher than 2060, potentially go for the 3-day edge to edge at 2200, or the 3-day key or the weekly Kijun at 2200 as well. I'll show that.
Yeah. So if you drop granularity on Ethereum to like so you can see it, even one more, it's probably a zero. Yeah. Shorts. Right. So it's like where's the liquidity? It's like 1940, like 1930,
Yeah,
1940 would be
just
like an
about.
interesting area. Yeah, look at all that. Like that's
This
a
is all
void that.
yeah, this is like an inefficient move up, right? We just kind of
So the
nuked
question
everything up.
is like, do they push it real hard into 2040 now and then exhaust it? It would be a swift reversal, in my opinion. Like if they actually do push it now. Whereas if you came down to retest that, I would probably try to buy some of those licks, and
Yeah,
then
1940
you're
would be a
probably
nice
looking at
retest.
2200 because most people are going to short that on the way down, and then you've just gotten fuel for above.
Yep.
So it's like I, in my mind, have the top side liquidity and the bottom side. Like right now is not something that makes sense for me to like shorting it here where you put your stop above 2030
Yeah.
and then
Like
you just get
you get
stopped
run
into the
out.
liquidity. Yeah, you get stopped into it and then it's going to reverse
Your
it.
stop
So
loss is someone else's entry, right? So it's funny to mention
yeah,
that. So someone just
yeah.
asked us in the chat, Ali, does time frame make a difference on Hyblock Capital? So Ali, that's actually not time frame, that's granularity. And the way you're filtering that is based on a certain bubble size. So this current granularity is about $100 million worth of liquidations. If you drop it all the way down, you'll get things up to I think 5 to 10 mil. So the slider is not the time frame, it's the granularity of the liquidation. So here you see something for 28 mil, for 15 mil, 13 mil, et cetera, et cetera. And then, the higher you go up, it's the more less granular it is.
And it coincides with the bar on the right side too.
Yeah.
So you have two different visuals. So if you hover over them, you can see, and then that's going to give you your cumulative lick delta essentially on the bottom.
Yep, right here.
Which is taking the shorts and longs relative, the difference basically,
Exactly.
and then also looking at the ratio up top. So yeah, it's hard to time these things, but it helps you like really put into perspective positioning of people outside of what some of these other guys do with looking at CVDs around spot and coin margin contracts, which is always interesting because like 52 skew and those guys, like sure there's others, they are looking at where the aggressor is, and so is it a spot seller or spot buyer, and are perps offsides, and is that going to cause the squeeze up or down? And there's a lot of like order flow positioning information in this tape right now that's extremely beneficial.
Absolutely.
And it all kind of like tells you the same thing. It's just whatever visuals help or whatever tools you use.
There's many ways to skin the proverbial cat, and if for us it's liquidity, for skew it's looking at the flow, and for other traders it's order flow. It's all about figuring out what works for you and your system. And if you can read your own tape, great. If not, stick with what works for you. It's kind of simple like that.
Yeah, and then there's some people that don't use any of it and they just use a chart. So kudos to them. Their life is much more simple.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's take a look at some altcoins. We're getting a request for GRT if you want to take a peek trip at that.
All right, let me see. GRT.
Yeah, I'll pull up a chart while you look at liquidity.
I think there is liquidity on that one too. Let me see. I'll let you know when I have it up, so you guys aren't staring at a screen that.
I'll look at the chart for a sec. Yeah, this has just been one giant range, So since I know it's in a range, I'm going to turn Ichimoku off first of all. Basically, into all of price action can be summed up in this range. It's been in the bottom half of the range for several weeks now. And are we, if Bitcoin is going to rip to the upside and crypto is going to catapult upwards, then we can probably assume we're going to, go for mid-range, maybe even range highs. But yeah, what's the liquidity looking at like on there? So like with a lot of these alts, I think the key to remember is that as Bitcoin makes its move, the USD pairs will kind of go up in value alongside Bitcoin. But you should always be looking at the BTC pair as well, because if the BTC pair is bearish, right? Excuse me. And if you see like your favorite crypto, it would make more sense to pick a chart that just looks cleaner in that term.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see a lot of altcoins with red deltas because they've been underperforming Bitcoin or ETH for the most part. They've been getting sold until recently, and there are some outliers. But can you see the chart?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, I actually was showing your chart, not mine before.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, give them the liquidity first, and then I'll look at the chart.
So, the lows here And let's just like look at how this works, right? So we had consolidation, move up, and then we're coming back down, and we're basically coming back down into an SR flip kind of demand zone here, right? So at that point, there was 40 million in shorts. This isn't a coin that I looked at all, right? And so you filled like all this in, and then you had people shorting the bottom, right?
Yep.
The interesting thing here is also when you clear out liquidity, it's good to see shorts, but it's also good to see no longs come in. So no longs came in from 14 cents up to here, basically. So you had these guys come in, they get run, and look, shorts come in. And now you're starting to see like kind of how the delta is starting to unwind and take out shorts. And so you got that move up, we're coming down. We still have 15 million in shorts. I mean, you've taken a good chunk out.
Yep.
Can you come down and take this liquidity here? Don't see why not, or at least like these 100x or 50x longs. But if this does like a rips up here, and you get a delta flip on this, and this turns green, and you kind of have this scenario, well, we saw what happened in the past, right? And
Exactly.
one thing that I get caught up in is like I saw this in near the other day, and this, this has been kind of an interesting trade. Is like just skipping around here. These highs seemed pretty ripe to the taking. This is obviously like a pretty
Flip it
big.
to
Oh my
chart.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I kind of tweet about this, right? So this zone is clearly resistance, right? And you had your highs here, and so it's like, all right, like 220s is like a really interesting short area because you take these highs and we can look at the liquidity. Let me pull it up here. And I'll get back to GRT. I didn't look at the BTC pair either, which is like a key
Good peek at it.
component
Yep.
to this. This is pulling up near liquidity. It should be at least. Sometimes overload. Okay, yeah. So I saw this, and I see things like this, like 208 million in longs, right? I mean, like look at what it took. It took 31 million in shorts to create like in pretty big short squeeze, right? And
Yep.
now you have these longs up here, right? And it's like a tricky distribution up here. So when you do get this imminent reversal, whenever it comes, I don't know when it's coming, but like if you're starting to tap into this liquidity up here, and it's the long short ratio is really high relative to like there's not that many shorts, and you're pushing back up to this maybe 180 200 million in longs on near, then go over to the chart. Like, are you consolidating here, or is this distribution? And then do you start to run liquidity lower, and maybe you're coming down into this like this block here? There's probably better trades out there. Just looking at that, but I do tend to get caught up in the liquidity aspect of things by just looking at deltas. And something to be cognizant of, and this is me self-reflecting a bit, but like Solana was another one, right? So we could take a look at Solana. Zoran, do you have a Sol chart by any chance?
Yeah. Give me one sec. Throw it on.
Right, and there's a couple things in my mind. There was like these layer ones started to move into Shanghai, um, maybe in like anticipation of like, oh, everyone dumps ETH, and there's this, or whatever it was. But I noticed that they were moving. You also had Solana launch their phone today, I believe.
Yes.
And who knows?
While your chart loads, I'll throw up.
Here we go. Here, Solana, right here.
Oh, you got it.
So as a liquidity trader, like I saw it up here, and look, 1,177 long liquidations to 38 shorts.
Wow.
Like
Yep.
you got to just think to yourself, that's 1.2 billion in longs. Like I
on
don't know
an
the event.
altcoin on nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't know the event, but you just had a pretty big catalyst. If price were to come up here and ETH squeezed or something, but I mean, here also like not too much liquidity like next to this price right here. It's either
Yep.
this or you start hitting this. This seems more feasible given we're going into the Asian hours. I haven't looked at a chart, but like this is where things get very extended. Like this already seems extremely extended, but here we
Absolutely.
go. We're marching up, and maybe it's spot driven that's doing this, but like it gets to a point where it won't matter if you're starting to tap into this, right? These are your two shorts that are basically what that came in, and yeah, up
You
here.
got the 50Xs and then 35X is still up
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah, $25, like 25, like when you're up here, then I would
It's probably
start.
just going to trend.
Yeah, but also like you can come back and retest this whole zone. Like we've kind of seen it do this, right?
Oh yeah, higher high and then higher
Yeah,
low somewhere
yeah.
at previous highs. Yep. So when
So
I look
looking
at a
at
chart, actually,
market structure, like you'd need to take this out low time frame for it to be.
so just looking at it from the high time frame, it's like I throw Ichimoku on just because it does look like it's trending, and we actually have all the prerequisites for like a breakout trade. So blue line over the L line right here, Chiku span, which is showing if the price is trending or ranging. So it's basically price plotted back 30 periods, currently well above the price from 30 days ago. And price is above the cloud, right? So it has all the prerequisites it needs to trend. Now we do have coming into some resistance here, as we see obviously with this pivot. But you said there's like liquidity at 26 or whatever, and we have all these like equal highs almost, right? Like where's that? Kind of here-ish, right? So can you do something like this? Come back down, maybe retest the cloud or the Tenkin or the Kijun, depending on where they at. Absolutely. So Sol actually looks pretty decent, and I'm pretty sure if I looked at the BTC pair, I'd probably
I
see.
saw someone they had a trend line that it broke out like a huge downtrend. So
Yes, I think I remember Soccer or someone tweeting that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, came off this key pivot here, broke this parabolic downtrend, a lot of momentum. Yeah, it's retesting the cloud here, but everything in my mind, assuming BTC is going to do what we think it's going to do and trend to the high 30Ks, whatever the case may be, Solana is probably going to be a high beta coin to trade to the long side. I think I do agree with whoever brought that up. Looks
yeah, I
good.
don't necessarily want to short it. That was more just like a liquidity
Yeah,
analysis
absolutely.
thing. Amoeba said histograms for Sol look good too for a breakout.
Oh, there you go.
So I mean, I don't know if you guys remember. This person's asking about APT. Amoeba served up APT on a silver platter for everyone
Absolutely, man.
because the histograms basically tell you are there whales, or is it largely spot buying and retail is shorting it, or is retail longing it and larger players are selling it? And that's Binance data primarily.
Yep.
But I think he also said the histograms for near were also bullish. So like, are they in the beginning stages of a trending move on a breakout? And does that match up with like a strong April and maybe alt season for these types of things, given that the BTC pairs are pretty bottomed out? And is there one last push here and then we see those moves? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but these are things that tell me to be wary of shorting the market in those instances, just because of liquidity. It's not the only reason. So that's something that I always have to kind of check myself with too.
That makes sense. If we're talking also about like alt season, because I feel like that's the topic at hand right now. It's ETH BTC, right? So for me, been here a couple cycles, and the only way I've learned to trade alt is kind of looking at the alt BTC pairs. And I think we can all agree that Ethereum is the proxy for alts in the market. So I remember tweeting about this the other day: is the 3-day gonna have a death candle just because it was literally like falling off a cliff right here. And lo and behold, what happened? We put in the bottom that same next day. So this to me is actually going to close in 2.5 hours. This is what I call a 3 inside up reversal. It's as clear as day, right? This is actually one of my favorite, just purely price action candlestick patterns. Three inside up reversals. Basically, you have one down candle, then the second candle has to come up and close at least halfway past the midpoint of the first down candle, which arguably we've already done. And then the third candle has to close above the origin or the high of the down candle. So right above here, assuming we close above 64.62 in the next 2.5 hours, that is as clear a day bottom, right? So ETH BTC is absolutely bottomed. And now what does that mean for the alt market? Well, now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this is fucking alt season. We are more than likely going to see some high beta plays for a lot of the cryptos moving forward, especially at least Ethereum, right? So I'm not a big alt trader. I'm not that great at it. If I'm being completely frank with myself, I'm much better at trading Bitcoin and Ethereum just because I've done it for so many years. But this 3 inside up to me is actually just like screaming at me. High beta plays are definitely going to be the move, and that makes me almost think that Bitcoin is more likely to range than just pull a swift move to the weekly key June at 32K right now, just because from the ETH-BTC standpoint, it makes a lot of sense now that Bitcoin's showing the way, right? Like it broke out of the accumulation range. Okay, we're all in agreement. Great. Broke out of a 3-week range. Cool. We look at ETH BTC, and ETH BTC is clearly telling us, okay, we just put in a bottom. We're putting in a bottom of sorts right now. Now that's has to translate on the weekly, of course. We did lose that like long mid range, but who knows? Could this just be a deviation of that mid range? And we're gonna soon reclaim it, right? So above 67, 68 would be the reclaim of that range. Something like that. And then, if we start getting up to range high on Ethereum, I think we can all agree that all season is probably in full effect. All your micro cap shitcoins, etc., are going to be moving. And, zooming in on just ETH BTC in general, if I want a long Bitcoin or Ethereum based on where ETH BTC is in at this point, so maybe I wouldn't be longing ETH here because it looks like it might reverse, but if it comes down to retest this area and then flips it, this is where I probably want a long ETH wherever the USD pair is. So I'll pivot over to ETH itself. And I think we've kind of seen that in just like the price action we just mentioned earlier, right? So like we have the move, consolidation, move. And again, that probably takes us to like 2200s, which is that 3-day edge to edge, as well as the weekly key June. It's always funny in hindsight, like when I look at just 3-day edge to edge, and I'm like, yeah, I bought it here and then I closed it here. But like, if you just set and forget with the trade, I just hold it to here. But yeah, point being, neither here nor there. This 2200 flat top is an area of importance in my mind, and I'm pretty sure if I throw up, ETH futures, we have a gap right here, right at 26 to 2500. So that's probably like 2500 on the spot pair. And then, of course, we have the CME 3-day edge to edge up to 3,000 almost, right? So the future looks bright for Ethereum, to say the least.
Yeah. I could see grab the liquidity 2060, maybe 2040, that area. Bring it back down to the liquidity at that, like, whatever, those lower 1900s we were talking about.
Yep.
It doesn't do it now.
1940.
And then it's like throw everyone for a loop, and then it goes to 2300.
Yeah, because there was a lot of overhang, right? So Shanghai was like the elephant in the room for a long period of time, and everyone was kind of just wondering, are all these billions of dollars of ETH going to kind of unwind from the market and just be sold on the open market? And I think even in Silico was tweeting about it that there was like more deposits than withdrawals, and he was freaking out about it. But point being is, when a large event in crypto turns out to be a non-event, and everyone lets go of their breath, stops holding your breath, it makes a lot of sense that the market starts to react and starts to price in, okay, there's no overhang of supply, and then the asset gets repriced. So, if we close the daily above 2K on ETH, it's a very bullish scenario, and I can see us kind of rocket shipping, barring Bitcoin kind of just chills or at least consolidates within the range.
Yeah, and on the deposits front, you would think the beneficiary of that would be some of the liquid staking derivatives like Lido, Rocket Pool, Frax. Like,
Very good point.
I used to be good at trading Lido, and then I've failed miserably recently. Yeah, but it was an outperformer today. It hit some key liquidity. Now it's like, what do you do with it? So
exactly.
I don't even know if it was beta to ETH, because what was the USD pair of ETH up today versus Lido?
5%, almost 4.8% so far, and then Lido is what?
Maybe in line. I don't think it went up, or might have been less. The other thing about alt season,
4%. Yeah.
So the other thing about alt season is if ETH BTC goes on a crazy run and Ethereum goes on a crazy run, it can suck all the liquidity from alts into that one coin.
It's sector specific.
Yeah, and we've seen it happen before. So, like chart your coins against ETH too, not just BTC.
Absolutely.
Because you're, as an alt trader, yeah, you're trying to outperform BTC, but ETH is the ultimate alt. People don't want to believe that or not, but ETH BTC leading, you're going to have to be outperforming BTC.
So we got a question earlier about MK Ultra says, mine looking at AV, the ETH pair was in a sick range, building a base, but it's deteriorating. Daily trend on USD pair also getting worse, but curious if the rotation will materialize. So, looking at
I'll look at
AV,
the on AV.
you look at the liquidity for AV, but this to me, just at first glance, does look like it's kind of breaking down. It kind of looked a little decent here. It might be putting in a higher low. But this to me, after today's move, I mean, it makes sense, right? ETH just was just a rocket ship. I'm not bullish. I'm not bullish on Aave right now. The fact that we had that kind of move today. Could it be a higher low from here? Yeah, maybe. But I would much rather be long ETH than Aave at this point. I don't know if the liquidity says anything different, Trip.
It's loading it right now. Yeah. Okay. So here's another there's a lot of dispersion, right? Like we could talk about some coins that have red deltas, and here it's kind of interesting. There's only 56 million. I would have thought this was more, maybe more, just because it's a larger cap coin. I always thought, but yeah, 505 longs to 78 shorts.
Yep.
These seem pretty ripe. But again, if you're getting up here on a spike, then like, is it a near term short just back down for liquidity? I mean, we have a lot of longs here. You had some shorts come in here, so maybe you clean these up. But yeah, I didn't see your screen when you were looking at it versus BTC or ETH. But I mean, what's this percentage move? 75 to 82. I mean, that's basically, it just cleaned out like this.
Yep.
And you have people chasing it. And like, look at
all the green dots at the top too.
Yeah, but if you look at the origin of where it's spiked,
yep,
it's here. It's this. All of these longs, basically. So if price came down here, then you're coming back to a more reasonable amount of longs.
Absolutely.
Are there any other Hyblock requests?
I don't know if we have Stargate or LTC. Sorry, I'll take a look at the chart.
One that I was looking at, which is, I don't know what, if anything's coming up, is CHZ. I thought they had like a mainnet launching, maybe that already happened.
Coin?
Yeah. But in alt season, like, that's the stuff that moves.
Yeah, you're not wrong. 100%.
I forget who posted it on Twitter, but it's an interesting chart. He had posted the long, and it was a very red delta. And then he had a target around like almost 15. And I was like, maybe we should look at this. And, it was full of longs, and now it's full of shorts again.
Yep.
All right, so this is Litecoin. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't trade this thing, but like, this is not, it can go either way, right? Like, just from a liquidity standpoint. Yeah, you can squeeze them.
Yeah, the delta is red, right?
But there was 156 million. Here's where you kind of got people shorting the bottom. I don't know. What I would do is maybe pull a fib on this up to here. If you think that, like, I mean, this is resistance, right? You start trading above this, then you'll probably go for the liquidity. But right now, there's nothing like near it except, these longs. If you get a pullback in ETH or BTC, you're probably going to start to take some of this liquidity, is my guess.
I can see that.
And then just start to build the delta again.
Even based on
maybe there's stuff on like the Kijun.
Yeah, so I was going to say the midpoint of the move is like 184.5-ish. Or sorry, 81.45, 0.845-ish. But just looking at it from just the high time frame view, we were over the cloud, broke under it, reclaimed the cloud, and now we're back over it. We do have all the pre conditions required for a Kumo breakout, but it's kind of at resistance, right? So this little area here doesn't scream buy it here. If it gets above and then retests, then I'd want to buy it for the retest. But I don't think breakout buying resistance on LTC makes the most sense. I know there's a narrative of the halvening that happens before Bitcoin, but it looks like it kind of had its little upthrust into resistance. So if this was the range high or whatever, and it tapped it once, came back down, flipped the mid-range to support, we had the last 4 days, that was the move right there, from call it $90 up to like $95. So it's kind of at resistance. It looks a little tired, and based on the liquidity trip share, it doesn't look that appealing comparatively.
Here, pull up CHZ, because this one, it's also funny because way back when like GCR was shorting this thing and like we were trying to long it, and like if you looked at the deltas, it was like, remember, it was like 500, 600 million in short. Now it's 22.
Oh, wow.
And now like it's 28. So if you guys want to talk about how liquidity has left altcoin, it's a primary example. But yeah, so 19 longs to 68 shorts, 17 million. If you get a pullback into these, maybe that's an interesting spot. You're kind of coming back into this zone. I haven't pulled a fib on this, but okay. But if you start kind of trading above this, then you're probably going to go for this liquidity, and this delta is going to flip green. Is my guess. Have you looked at a chart of this at all?
Here, I'll throw it up. It doesn't look that appealing just yet. It's under the cloud. You did have the cross, but like you're not going to get an edge head to it like 14
So what's that
cents.
key June?
So it's 12.3 cents or 0.123 cents approximately, which is like what, like the SR flip of this
it's
range here.
This liquidity. It would be like down here, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be lower. Yeah, it'd run all the licks basically.
Yeah. I don't know. It was more interesting down here, but yeah. I just wanted to look at that one. What are the other questions?
Phantom, DYDX, SSV. I don't think I've heard of SSV on Hyblock. You do Phantom?
I don't think that's on there. Yeah, some liquidity.
If it's not on Binance futures, you don't get liquidity for it most often than not. So it has to be on a major exchange that's trading volume and that has like perps for it, because otherwise, you don't have leverage in the spot market, so it's not going to give you these neat liquidation circles. Let's see what
FTM. I mean, here we are. We're getting up there. 158 million in longs.
Phantom actually looks pretty good though, chart wise, but I'm curious to see what the liquidity looks like. You have some bottom shorters coming in there.
Heavy longs. Yeah, it's so there was about 200 up there. You got a reversal. So I don't know if you start trading up into these areas up here, starts to get
a little frothy.
Starts to get heavy longs again. What's the chart looking
So
like?
chart wise, it looks like it's kind of just breaking out. You got the Kumo twist. I mean the TK crossover here, which is what you're looking for. This Chiku span is above price right here. But I do want to make a note that even though we're technically trending compared to 30 days ago, when we zoom in, we see basically in about 2 days, unless price starts going up higher, this Chiku span is going to be inside price. And what does that mean? That tells us that price based on 30 days ago is still range bound. So I probably wouldn't want to buy it just yet here. I'd probably want to see it clear these highs, maybe go above and then come back down and try to flip the highs and maybe buy this retest. Or on the flip side, I want to see it come back down somewhere into this area before getting long. But I would reckon, I'd go out on a limb to say that if we came back into this area before making a higher high, it's probably just going to chop around. I don't see it breaking, because then again, this Chiku span is back inside price for at least a week, about 5-6 days. So I'd wait for Phantom to clear 53-ish before actually wanting to punt for the range highs here at like 62 cents. But it does look like a good chart, and it looks like the liquidity would support along. I just don't think based on the daily, I want to be swinging along from it. Now, I mean, even on the 4 hours, this looks like a nice little top signal. But lo and behold, buying the test of the yellow line is probably a good spot if you have a bullish thesis on Phantom and just kind of want to swing it.
Or even going back up for a lower high. You notice like a lot of these altcoins are at range highs and they're pretty green deltas.
Yep.
So it's like you're flipping a coin on like, is it going to break out and none of those longs are going to get taken, like where you get to an exhaustion point and whips back down. Like I don't know. I guess it's a bit precarious to me trying to buy a breakout when things look like that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And look, it can go to 500 million in longs, but it's just not the way I look at stuff right here. But
it's not
trending
screaming
market,
out at you. That's like the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't seem overly exciting. Doge, Atom, Link.
Doge, Atom, Link. I'll take a look at Doge.
I'll pull up Doge.
Dogecoin, the fabled Doge. This doesn't look too bad. Ichimoku is still choppy, so I probably wouldn't use Ichimoku here just because we've been in this range since November. So
my guess is heavy shorts on this one.
Yeah, we had the Elon news, right? And then it broke down. It looks like it tried to put in a higher low, or SFP, the higher low. And it looks decent here, but what's liquidity look like? Because, based on this, I think it's just a range-bound asset. You probably want to buy the range lows, sell the range highs. This is probably an area I'd want to buy, 84 cents, call it, or, sell somewhere up here at 91, 92 cents.
There's 389 million in longs, but all these shorts most likely get smoked to up here is my guess.
I can see that. 90 at 90 cents about. I could see, yeah. So you can maybe long it with a tight stop and then maybe flip short around 92 cents-ish, 91
You
cents.
could probably long Doge here, right here, put a stop underneath this, because I feel like if you do come down, these shorts have not been taken out. Like these longs all just got taken out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shorts. So that you could trade up. I don't know what the risk to reward is on that, but just from like
it's not bad actually. It's 4-1.
Okay, so this looks like it'll attack up here right now. Even though this is green, that just like looking at positioning, it seems like this is likely to
not a bad play.
Near term.
Yeah, even on the low time frame, it makes sense. You have the Kumo breakout on low time frame as well on the hourly. It really shouldn't come back down to 85, 84 cents, but
I mean that's the lows. Like those are the lows. I don't know if it actually took any of these lows over here, but like this is support in this mini range, and so you trade back to range high basically. That's how I look at it.
That makes sense. Just a range scalp.
Yeah, I mean a lot of that is if you didn't catch this move, because a lot of this can be distribution and it can range and just
ping pong the range. That's a good point actually.
Yeah.
So it's range low in the range high of distribution. So you're basically scalping the range.
Yep.
I like that.
Which people do that a lot in Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're looking at one of them.
We like to flip flop, flippity flop. I love it.
Oh man, Atom. I'll take a look at Atom for you guys. I have not looked at this coin in a long time. Some of this stuff's helpful too because you can open our eyes to
setups. Yeah, I think we found a few setups that way, haven't we?
Yeah.
Mask.
Like, mask. Jesus, yeah. I mean, again, like we're just getting extended in these instances, right? I mean, and look, like this wasn't even that many longs here, and we kind of just like, and then boom, you're gonna get this. Like this is gonna happen at some point. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but this doesn't last forever.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that it won't keep trending, but you can come down here.
Yeah, there's a higher low to be had there. I don't think you're just market buying this for the move up to new highs.
Right. Like if you're 517 to 119, maybe you come up here, maybe you take this high, or maybe you just I don't know, maybe you just get here, right? Lower high. You could try to short it, put a stop here, and then attack this liquidity.
Yep.
And find some of that. Like if you drop granularity on this, let's see what it tells us. 5-0, but like that's not helpful. We'll move it up a little bit to see if there's any bigger pockets. Yeah, I mean you're already
kind of getting 11.5. Okay, yeah, it's actually interesting. So when I pull up the chart, daily time frame, this just looks like we had a nice consolidation, grind up, and this is like the breakout candle right now. Just because we have a breakout candle doesn't suggest it's immediately just like up only. Quite the contrary, actually. So when I zoom into the 4-hour, which is like my favorite breakout trade area, here's where you have a prime example. Yup, and it's not even that. You have the prime example of an Ichimoku breakout. So, Ichimoku breakout trading is when you have a Kumo twist, right? So this blue line gets above the white line. You have this blue line above the L line. That's called the TK crossover. And the last neat thing you need for the checklist is Chiku span above price. Because why? We have to make sure we're trending and not ranging. So we have all three of these preconditions, and the fact, obviously, price is above and outside the cloud. So, you could just long it here and put a stop below the Kijun or below the cloud, but I feel like the risk reward to that is not ideal. So what I would like to see is either some sort of consolidation, but around here, which would retest this pivot right here at about 1179, 1180, anywhere between 1180 to 1150. That's like the cloud retest.
Here, you just look at the liquidity.
And then I was going to say, when you pair it with the liquidity, that's right there. There's a 35x long lick at what is it, 1180, 1157. Yeah. Okay. So there you go.
1167 is where you're going to get the
50x.
This is 45.
So point being is, if you just stick within that range and you patiently wait for the setup to kind of come to you, you're much better off having a higher risk to reward ratio, because again, the better you can execute on a trade, the more size you can tack on, and therefore, obviously increase your profitability, hopefully, assuming it goes your way. But point being is, when you see a setup, for me, it's trending market, so Ichimoku, and then I see a level I want to buy, either the Tenkin, the Kijun, or the Cloud, and then I look over at Hyblock and I see the liquidity for it. Okay, well, there's something at 1157, 1167, and so on, there forth. I get a better sense for how low or how high I want to bid. So I know I want, Tenkin or the Cloud. The Tenkin is on currently 1146. Let me show that. The Tenkin is currently on 1146, and then it moves up over the next 12 periods, which is 48 hours from now. So 2 days from now, it'll be at 1155. So if this just chops around, maybe even makes a higher high, comes back, and if it comes into this key area, that's where I want to bid, because then I'm allowed to have a stronger setup and I can define my risk more clearly. And whenever I can define my risk more clearly, because stop loss either goes below the cloud or below the Kijun. So let's say we keep it tight at 1140. And then I'm probably playing to some of those liquidity levels higher. I don't know how high they are, Trip. But just looking at it from here, this is probably resistance, $12, give or take. Let's just call it. It's a solid trade to let come to you and then kind of execute as it happens.
Yeah, and look, like if things are that bullish and it's alt season, like this stuff isn't going to linger around the support too long. They typically rip right out of liquidity bubbles,
Exactly.
like just bids filled and then you get wicks and whatnot. So yeah, I think someone wanted to look at Link too. I will look at Lido, and I don't know. I can't sit here and do all of them, but I will.
We'll do Lido and Link, and then we'll kind of take some trading questions if you guys have any last minute ones.
So Link, again, like we have the same story here, right? You had shorts, squeezed them. We went up to 71 million in longs. Now we're sitting at 52. You have some bottom shorters here. You have some longers. I mean, let's drop some of the plan here just to get a clearer picture to see. Yeah. So the question is it hitting this first or is it hitting this first?
Yep.
That's how I would look at Link right now on a short-term basis. Could just get this, right? This is nice. You take out this low, you take out this low. It's pretty close to this, right? And then you down like a lot in longs? Maybe. I don't know. But again, the more attractive thing is probably taking this and getting overextended on the long side, to where, like, if you're trying to find the party that's offsides, even on a scalp, this is not like a full-on reversal of the whole chart, but up here is where you're starting to get pretty extended. That's like what, 760, somewhere around there. How does that match up on the chart?
Let's take a look. Where's Link? Just had it.
Yeah, Near's 219, ETH's 211.
What was the level you just mentioned?
760.
760. Yeah, you sweep those equal highs, or those poor highs, whatever you want to call them, and you make a higher high. Yeah, I can see it. I don't know that it's necessarily the highest probability trade, though.
Yeah, again, like if it doesn't stick out, then it's probably not worth your time. Lido, man, this freaking coin.
Throw the chart up real quick, see what that looks like. Lido.
It went to like 220. And then it just
chopping in the cloud. It's just range bound behavior right here, really.
I can't tell you how many times I've tried to short green deltas and it's been like boom, 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 like, and then long these red ones. Like this, the start of the week, I was like, all right, do I want to torture myself with this? Because like if you pull a fib on like the whole move from the $2 low, like, you know, everyone thought 255 was going to be the high, and then it did some astronomical, ridiculous move to 280 or something like that.
Yep.
Right? And then it comes back down to 220.
Yeah.
And whoever the market maker is on this, like, rips 239, boom, comes down. Like, it is savage. And now here we are back at 243, right?
Yep.
And you're collecting longs again. And I know that I'll see it and be like, it's probably a good short up here, and then this can keep extending. So I probably will not trade Lido.
I love it.
But yeah, that's Lido. What's the chart looking like?
It was just literally a range. I was just showing it while you were going over it. It wasn't very interesting, right? So it's just like it's in the range lows. Can it go back to the range highs, sweep that 280 level you were just talking about, or is Dragonfly and whoever else going to dump on us? I don't know. It doesn't stick out to me, so again, I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah,
do that.
All right, last one. I'll look at ARB because I know that is one.
Oh, they added that one, right? Yep. Where's ARB?
This has to have a lot of longs in it, I would imagine. Didn't this thing just go up 10% today?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
wow. Look at all those green dots, man.
You have these shorts. So, like, I would draw a diagonal, like, here, up into this, probably, as, like, maybe that's your resistance point. Maybe you're taking some of this. But, yeah, there's a lot of longs, but, like, this is a darling coin right now, it seems. 229 million in longs. But, again, like, I guess if you just simplify it, it's just hard to dial in your entries on these types of things. But when this is continuously building, it seems like it's almost inevitable that the market is going to take the shorts out, right?
Yep.
And so, like, this is wild, though. Like, this is
super inefficient.
Yeah. Come down, like, again, like, whenever it happens, like, boom, ARB comes to
whatever the higher low is. Yeah, $1.20. There's a pivot there at $1.21.
Yeah, take this low. Here, get some. Well, let's drop the granularity here. Let's figure out where the big licks are in terms of what would. Wow. Okay. 0. This is a newer coin. I know that too. That they added data for. I guess 121. That's it.
121. I mean, that lines up with
sweep this low.
Yeah, basically just the consolidation that we had prior.
Pretty much, yeah. If it comes down, like, and then now you can get a little more granular here, but, like, I don't know. Yeah,
this little level here.
An inefficient zone right here. So take this low, and maybe you come into 120, 121, into that pivot.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm a breakout buyer or a momentum trader at this level personally, just because I don't think that I can chase it well. Maybe you're putting your risk below this low, but again, that's kind of an unconfirmed higher low without the higher high here. So Yeah, I'd much prefer to wait for some sort of pullback on Bitcoin if we even get it, right? And the 120 level would be a nice rinse, and that is what, like, 10%. So let's say Bitcoin drops 4 or 5%, you can easily see that move back down.
So if you were to drop from
Excuse me, sorry.
this low at like 116 to the high,
Yep.
126. If you have the chart up, like where's your 50%? It's probably
It's 126, yeah, basically.
oh, okay. So that zone,
That
I
adds up,
guess.
yeah. Above the lick.
Looking at ARB, yeah, I mean, I think that was a pretty good
Sesh.
synopsis. I mean, guys, we're only two people. Does not mean we know everything about the market. I mean, I'll be honest, it's been really confusing to trade for me. That's just part of
Trading.
this whole career. Yeah. And sometimes you're in sync, sometimes you're not, right? And
Yep,
so
absolutely.
I've taken less trades recently. Zoran has not, obviously.
I've taken more trades.
Yeah, so it's like it comes and goes. I have the really high time frame levels in mind for BTC and ETH to see like what's the reaction there, and those seem like high probability setup on liquidity, key highs, the chart. So that's what I'm going to be watching, and I'm constantly screening for the offsides deltas, but again, they're hard to time. I mean, I'll try to make it as aware as possible in the tools of the trade Telegram. That's been pretty active. There's a lot of posts on Twitter. Yeah, so it's been a fun journey since the beginning of the year. That's for sure.
Absolutely. It'll only get better, right? But just to echo that last commentary, I can speak to this personally, right? So knowing when you're in the flow state and when you're absolutely fucking not is very key, because when you're not, just don't trade, right? But I think it's also about being objective with yourself and just understanding that sometimes you'll think you are, but then the chart will tell you otherwise, and that's fine, right? You can step away and say, all right, I'm wrong here. Let me flip my bias, or let me just step away in general. I like the flip flop just because when I try to get into that flow state as often as possible, and I can't do that just stepping away. So for me personally, I enjoyed doing that flip flop bias that everyone loves to hate on Twitter, but that's just part of the journey, right? So the more you can actively hone in on your own objective ability to evaluate the markets and kind of try to understand what it's telling you is definitely key in my opinion. So I think the point to get across is, be honest with yourself and also just try to be as objective as possible. Trading is a very subjective sport at times, but the markets are always clinically objective. So it's up to us to kind of, separate the wheat from the chaff and kind of decide, is today my day? If yes, pedal on the gas. If not, take a step back, wait for the market to develop and show you what it's thinking. So with that, guys, we talked about a lot of fun stuff today. Went over a bunch of different scenarios. And I think that's about wraps up today's episode. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll catch you next week. Captain Cole signing out.
See you later, guys.